Welcome to our video on Washington, D.C. lease and landlord-tenant laws. You need to know local laws when managing a rental property. With that in mind, here are some D.C. rental laws to be familiar with. In D.C., the lease agreement is the foundation of the landlord-tenant relationship. It's a legally binding contract between a landlord and tenant that outlines all terms of the rental relationship. A standard lease is a one-year, fixed-term contract. A District of Columbia lease should include basic terms like rent amount, rent due date, lease term, late fee policies, and pet policies. The lease should also cover details like pest control, snow removal, air filter responsibilities, and yard maintenance. In addition to these terms, some additional things must be included in D.C. leases. Landlords must provide tenants with the District of Columbia Tenant Bill of Rights when the lease is signed. They also must provide tenants with a copy of the D.C. required notice to tenants of housing code provisions. If the rental unit was built before 1978, landlords must provide tenants with a D.C. lead-based paint disclosure. Finally, landlords must provide tenants with updated voter registration forms.
Next, let's talk about key District of Columbia landlord-tenant laws. Every rental unit in D.C. must be registered with the Rental Accommodations Division using the RAD Form 1. D.C. landlords must provide tenants with a receipt for all payments, including rent payments and the security deposit. Landlords may charge up to 1 month's rent for the security deposit. Within 45 days of the end of the tenancy, landlords must either return the security deposit or provide the tenant with an itemized list of deductions. If there are deductions, landlords have an additional 30 days to return the remaining funds. Landlords must give at least 48 hours before entering the property for non-emergencies. Late fees cannot exceed 5% of the rent and can only be imposed after a 5-day grace period. If a tenant receives government assistance, the late fee can only be applied to the portion paid by the tenant. Late fees must be discussed in the lease agreement. D.C. landlords may not require tenants to get renter's insurance. There is no statute limiting how much a landlord can charge for a return payment fee, but this fee should be reasonably related to the expenses incurred due to the bad check. Fixed-term leases terminate at the end of the period unless otherwise stated. Either party can terminate a month-to-month lease agreement with 30 days notice. Washington, D.C. has rent control laws that are governed by the Rental Housing Act of 1985, which allows one rent increase a year and sets limits for how much rent can be increased. Landlords can review the complete guidelines in the D.C. Rent Control Fact Sheet, linked in the comments.
District of Columbia landlords must keep rental units in good repair and ensure that essential systems like plumbing, electrical, hot water and heat are working properly. If landlords fail to make necessary repairs, tenants have specific rights, including the right to withhold rent or deduct and repair. Retaliation by the landlord against tenants is strictly prohibited. If a tenant fails to pay rent or violates the lease agreement, the landlord may be forced to start the eviction process. In these situations, landlords must strictly follow District of Columbia law and can never resort to self-help eviction methods, such as changing locks or shutting off utilities. Congratulations, you're now ready to create a Washington, D.C. lease and manage your D.C. rental. While there are some complex lease laws, our lease agreement automatically includes all required disclosures and gives you state assist tips as you build it. It's easy to customize online and includes unlimited access to our electronic signing tool, EasySign. As you manage your rental, remember that we have over 400 property management forms, including Washington, D.C. specific forms. Visit easylandlordforms.com to start your tenant screening and create a lease agreement that's guaranteed to comply with all D.C. lease laws.